what is the damning scenario, right? Because right now, the smoking gun, as the Daily Caller talks about, it seems to me, and please, anybody correct me if I'm wrong, including you, Katie, to be that the February 11th letter, which came out of the Justice Department, that Eric Holder was a part of, suggesting that there never was a gun walking program, that is what the smoking gun speaks to, that he might have known, in fact, or shortly thereafter, that that document was false while it stood for 9, 10 months,
and they
right?
retracted it eventually.
Right. Retracted it almost a year later, 10 months later, but for 9 months, it stood as the Justice Department's official stance on Fast and Furious. It seems to me this, at least, is the probable damning scenario, right?
That's what I mean. We don't know, but
the Justice Department is committed, perjury, a lie in front of Congress, and that Holder was aware the Justice Department was doing that. As to the bigger damning scenario, the one regarding the Obama administration's policy,
right,
and the motive behind Fast and Furious, I remain unsure.
I remain skeptical about any insight we're going to get into motive in these documents. Hey, I'd love to see it. I'd always love to see what goes on in the minds of some of these people, but I don't think we're going to get that. I think, as Will says, we're probably going to get what did they know and when did they know it. But I think, to Buck's point, you bring up an interesting point about the sort of rollout of responses and defenses that you've seen from Democrats. First, this was, oh, well, this is just politics. Now you're starting to see, well, this is racism. Then there's, you know, the journalists, the political class saying that this is a losing issue. Why are both sides, pursuing it? I mean, at the heart of the matter, of course, is a dead border agent. At the heart of the matter, of course, is a cover-up, which is always worse.
Hundreds of dead Mexicans.
Hundreds of dead Mexicans. Gun rights on the line. Gun issues in the crosshairs yet again. And what is probably amounting to nothing more than a huge summertime distraction that Darrell Issa didn't expect. He thought this was going to be wrapped up a year ago.
From Ix's perspective, he has to see this through at this point, clearly.
Right.
But there are a lot of pundits that are weighing in and saying that this is bad for Republicans. I think that's somewhat beside the point.
That's wrong.
And I think it's wrong. Yeah.
It's wrong.
Again, we really haven't discussed the international aspect of this, that one of the differences between Fast and Furious and the program under George Bush was that in Fast and Furious, the Mexican government did not know that our government is doing this. And if you think of this scenario, imagine that Canada is arming American criminals with Canadian guns because of their own policy. Is it credible that the Prime Minister of Canada wouldn't be receiving a phone call from the President of the United States?
Katie, while we've got you, could you help, just for the audience, really lay it down? Because this is one of the main defenses that you're hearing now from the White House and from its surrogates. Could you differentiate the gun walker program beforehand, Project Gun Runner, from Fast and Furious?
Wide receiver.
Wide receiver, yeah. Can you just give us the nuts and bolts of why those are so different?
The new talking point is desperately trying to turn, a lie into a fact by repeating it over and over again. Under President Bush, there was an operation called Operation Wide Receiver, where the U.S. government was working with the Mexican government to arrest and indict straw purchasers who were transferring arms to Mexican cartels. Some of these guys were allowed to go into Mexico with guns, but the Mexican government was informed and was responsible for arresting them. Once the Mexican government, unsurprisingly, dropped the ball, the program was shut down. Now, under Fast and Furious, the Mexican government wasn't informed, and thousands of guns were trafficked into Mexico without their knowledge, and even ATF agents working in Mexico weren't informed about this, and there were 0 arrests made until the day Brian Terry was killed. As soon as he was killed, guess who got arrested? The guy who bought the guns a year earlier. So there's a huge difference between the two, especially starting with the Mexican government was informed, which goes to a huge, the international incident, as Amy said. That shows more trust than under the Obama administration.
This shows why I lend more credence even to some of the sort of the conspiracy aspect of this, because letting guns go is, as we've known from the beginning, a tactic that is absolutely disavowed by law enforcement, locally and at the federal level. Because you can be responsible, we're talking about Brian Terry, you can be held responsible for what happens to those firearms down the line. So you will burn months of an operation in many cases because a firearm has left government hands and gone into an individual's hands illegally. So the notion that you would sell guns across an international border and allow that to happen, it doesn't, there's no purpose to it unless you're trying to prove some kind of a strange point.
I think you actually will see a motive if these are revealed. I think there will be an anti-Second Amendment agenda that's in there, and I think it's going to go right straight up to the president, and I think it's going to be a huge problem if these things actually do come out.